order. Am I allowed to? Four. There we go. I'll call this meeting to order. Are there any modifications, additions to the agenda?
Yes, there are two. One comes from Commissioner Shepherd. He reminded me this morning that this is actually when we affirm the election of the officers.
Perfect.
So that usually happens in July. So there is an updated staff report. And that basically just reiterates the officers that are currently in place. And then the second one, which Commissioners Chapman and Gehring brought up, and that's regarding the special license plate discussion. For very similar to, there's about 50 of them around the state, so open that up and for a discussion later on. And there, you also should have this document, or maybe it was sent to you via email.
It was sent and it's here too.
Perfect. So just those two additions, everything else
Okay.
looks good.
Okay, we'll move on to public comment. I see one person signed up, Mitch.
Yep. Mitch Tyson.
Mitch Tyson.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Mitch.
Yeah, you bet. Guys, thanks for having me. I've reached out to the Port Hood River, speak with Miss Daryl Stafford about the possibility of a mobile sauna. I come from the Midwest, Minnesota, come out here, and saunas are a big part of just relaxing, either with your family, friends, or after an activity. Traveling back and forth to Minnesota, even in the areas such as Bend or up in Seattle. These places of sauna is a great place to relax and enjoy the area. With people, it's nice to unwind from a day, concentrate on health. It has a lot of health benefits. But speaking with Miss Stafford, she said that the areas that I would like to put a mobile sauna or offer that to the community of Hood River are on the Port Hood River property. And so I don't know the exact path to permitting or permission to park a trailer, which would be outfitted for a sauna, a changing room, and host anywhere between 8 and 12 people at a time in the sauna. But she said to come here and present to the board this idea, and before getting a business together, getting funds and outfitting a trailer for this idea, and then come with you guys. I'm here to propose this idea, offering 3 possible locations or taking input of locations you might have. But what this is a trailer that's anywhere between 18 and 24 feet long, self-generated from it, or self-powered by a generator, which would then heat up these sauna rocks for people to enjoy. It would be like a weight room or a gym in which you'd have to sign up for a slot to use sauna, to be maintained by myself and colleagues for people to come and use. It doesn't have to be members only. It would be something that would add to the scenery of Hood River and the Columbia River Gorge for people that are just in town here wanting to take a break, or maybe people that are traveling through that are more on the active side of things. It doesn't just have to be a winter thing or a summer thing. It could be all year round, or could just be slotted. But I'm here today to try to get permission for one of the locations proposed there. One at the far end of the marina. Another site would be by the spit, and another one would be at the end of the hook. Speaking with Miss Stafford, well, it's wind season, I'm a wind guy myself, and so I know that there's a lot of venues renting gear for people, but they somehow require permit or permission from you guys to have a trailer on the spots to use. So I don't know at this point how to get permission or what that submission looks like.
Okay, thank you very much. Since this is your first meeting, we listen to public comment, take it into consideration. We don't really interact, but we will have a discussion with staff and figure out the best way to answer your request. So thank you very much for coming.
Great, and then follow up with you with Ms. Stafford or
Yeah, she'll follow up with you after we have an opportunity to kind of discuss. And as you know, there are a lot of moving parts with the bridge, and you know, there's kind of a lot happening and with the lands down here. So definitely we'll have a discussion, and Daryl will be in touch with you.
sounds
Quick question for you. Does this require any infrastructure at all, or could you truly be up and out of there in an hour if you needed to be, or?
up and out of there for now.
Okay, it's not-
Yeah, the idea would actually be having a semi-permanent structure so I can keep it here for a season, or maybe even bring it up to the mountain or other venues that might need it, but, I think this down here at the port will be a great semi-permanent place for traveling.
Okay, thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Have you done a business plan?
More just, napkin scratches as far as things go.
But have you done any kind of survey that, is there really a market for that down here in both seasons?
That's a great point. I guess. The only market research I could say is comparing it to the Society Hotel across the way. And they're very full bookings and reserved times. There's some, I mean, in winter times, months out, in summer times, sometimes weeks out. So it depends on, I guess, spring breakings, people vacationing definitely impacts that, but seasonally as well. So I have not done it, but the Society Hotel is a very busy place.
In the winter time, it's not all that busy down at the port.
But the mountain's busy.
Hmm.
But the mountain's busy.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet, thank you.
Okay, so then we will move on to the consent agenda. And so the adoption of the officers, unless there is discussion from anyone, if anyone wants to be president. You may volunteer for that now.
Are you declining the position for the next?
I just want to make sure that it's offered, if anyone, I think you're doing a great job. So, does anyone have any discussion for consent?
Oh, I just love to make a motion to keep on saying.
I know, you. Darn it.
That's fine, unless there's a problem. You know,
We're good.
you're not suffering or anything.
No, I'm
It's
fine.
I'd
Okay,
be more than fine to give up secretary if you want to become secretary.
I'm not gonna get in everybody's way of taking their turn as president. Wouldn't do that for the world.
Okay,
Move to approve consent.
all right, then can I get a second?
a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, informational reports, bridge for replacement project update. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Shannon team? No? Sounds like a lot of progress is being made, though.
Does everybody understand that there's a significant change to the better with the new bridge as far as what it's gonna look like? We're changing from concrete to steel. But with that said, the steel is gonna be fabricated where there will be a kind of a parabolic look to it. So when you look at the drawings from afar, it looks like the old, the current approach to the bridge, other than the color. Color will be weathered steel. But by doing that, that gives us the capability of reducing the number of piers in the water, which means we can make the spans a little longer, which I'm not gonna put words on Kiewit's mouth, but it will be cheaper than the concrete option and faster to get it installed
Well, I think we all like cheaper and faster.
Yeah.
and faster,
Yeah, cheaper.
especially faster.
Yes, faster.
We like to use the word less expensive rather than
perfect.
cheaper.
But that's
Perfect.
true.
Okay, thank you for that. Presentations and discussion items. We do have the bridge incident report. Mr. Greenwood, please take it away.
Yes, and Patty, if you want to tee up the PowerPoint presentation, so in your report, we did staff put together kind of an assessment on what transpired ever since the event took place, and really it culminated in some recommendations that I want to make to the board. But before I do that, there were a couple of things that I just wanted to correct in the report that was brought to my attention. And so just for the record, on page 40, there's a reference to July 27th. That should be June 27th. And then I must have had difficulty understanding the difference between deductible and premium, because on page, let's see, section 8, there's two references where it says premium, or it says deductible, but it should be premium. And then also in the, this report was finished July 9th. And in reference to the insurance coverage, there was a statement that the vehicle involved had not been included on the schedule. Since that time, there's been new findings. And so we are going to open it up to Scott just to reference some of the updates. But anytime you're dealing with these insurance issues, they can take weeks, months, or if not years. So I just wanted to clarify those items for the record. And really want to focus today on what's been taking place out on the bridge with the engineering training. If you're Justin Dornick is back. If you recall, you first met him on June 30th, which was the Sunday morning, the first time in 25 years in this line of work that I'd ever had a Sunday morning public meeting. And then we also have James Shearer from Kiewit is here as well. And then we have Scott Rainier back in the cheap seats on the insurance and some of the cost issues. And then I'll close out with the recommendations. So next slide, and that'll be kind of the kickoff for Justin. So if you can give an update on the engineering side of things.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. So just to kind of recap the last meeting, the recommendations that we provided to the port, and then I'll move into what the activities we've been doing since then. So if you recall, our recommendations in June 30 in the June 30 meeting was for the bridge to have a temporary condition where the existing bridge lift span would remain in place and not be raised until all portal bracing is repaired. We said at the discretion of the port, marine traffic under the bridge may continue, provided the port can determine that there is sufficient vertical clearance to do so without raising the lift span. Third one, at the discretion of the port, reopening of the bridge to cars or passenger vehicles may proceed, truck traffic not allowed to mitigate the potential for another accidental strike to the overhead bracing while the bridge is in a final damage state. And then the last recommendation was that the design of the final bridge repair plans, specifications, and estimates should be expedited with the resulting repairs to follow immediately after. So really, the next two slides I have are to talk about the fourth bullet point and what we've been doing since the June 30th meeting. So we could go to the next slide, please. All right, so design team activities since June 30, 2024. This slide captures the first week following that meeting. So starting between Monday, July 1st to Sunday, July 7th, we started immediately having daily coordinations with Kiewit, the contractor, and also continued our intermittent meetings with the port. Many of these meetings are just to talk about progress updates, to talk about schedule, make sure that we're all on the same page so that when we get to the final plans and specifications, there's no surprises to anyone, and that we're all headed in the same direction. We also worked with Kiewit very quickly right in the first part of that week for advanced procurement of materials. We had section sizes, material sizes, bolts, all those items that we wanted to get procured. So we worked with Kiewit to get those procured. And then we advanced the final designs of the repairs and the specifications and developed our quantities. That was completed. We actually issued a stamped package of final drawings, specifications, and quantities on July 7th. But between the July 1st over to the 7th, we were providing progress plots throughout the week to Kiewit and to the port, just to again facilitate communication. Get feedback from Kiewit on constructability, get feedback from the port as well, and just making sure that we're all headed in the same direction. And then we provided the final plans and specifications on the 7th. This design team that supported this work, the design work, was many of the same professionals that supported the initial bridge assessment that you saw me report out on Sunday, June 30th. Those individuals it's a collection of professional engineers who have their PE license. They're structural engineers as well that have their structural engineering license. And even in that mix, we have a couple PhDs as well that are licensed engineers as well. So very proud to be able to work with that group of individuals on this project. So that was the first week. And then can we go to the next slide, please? Since then, after we issue final design plans and specifications, then we go into, the design team goes into a construction support phase. And during that phase, now it's primarily working with Kiewit to keep communications going, to keep planning for construction and keep talking through construction. So during that timeframe, we are responding to requests for information, which we call RFIs from Kiewit. And a lot of times, sometimes that's just a question that they might have about something. And we provide a formal written response for documentation on what that response is to them. We also review construction submittals. There's various construction submittals that Kiewit provides because as required by the specifications, we work with them as well to review those construction submittals on behalf of the port through our construction and support task in our task order. And we worked with Kiewit on reviewing those submittals and getting those to an accepted or approved status. And then we also provide field support throughout the whole process. So last week and through this week, we have construction inspectors in the field during the work. And then we also have the engineer of record or a representative from the technical side in the field as well to help expedite decision-making in the field on the fly, or, to be able to be a part of the conversation so that we can take it back to the office the next day and expedite a decision in that way. And so we also have a lot of involvement in the field as well from our perspective. And that kind of brings us up to where we are today. And we continue to work in construction support, on behalf of the port in the field and with Kiewit as well.
So if there's any questions for Justin on the engineering side, if not, then we can move to James's presentation on the construction activities.
Yeah, again, I'm James Shear. I'm with Kiewit. I'm the project manager overseeing this. Go to the next slide. I can use this one. So Justin's already kind of went through a timeline. I just put some stuff up here just I think we reacted pretty quickly by the June 2nd and 3rd. We had a material list and we had some drawings and specifications. We were able to get some material ordered. So starting on the 2nd, we began fabrication of these steel members. Kiewit has a facility in Portland, on the east side of Portland, that was able to jump on this, get the material ordered, get it delivered to their shop, and begin the welding and fabrication of these parts and pieces. And I have some photographs of that later. We got notice to proceed on the 5th. So over the holiday weekend there was discussions going on back and forth. And then on Monday, July 8th, we began work in the field. Next slide. So there's 6 different locations that need to be repaired. So this is a representation of where those 6 different spots are. There's some rules of, like, we can't work on adjacent ones next to each other at the same time. We really need to finish one and then move on to the next one. So it's not like we could just go attack all of these at the same time. So for example, last night we went out and we worked on what we're calling portal number 1, number 4, and number 6. So next slide. This is an overview of these working drawings that Justin was talking about. We got the drawings and we went out in the field, and we noticed I highlighted an area here where we thought that gusset plate, we might be able to save it and save us some time and some money in the lead abatement and in the just time wise. If We only need to replace the A, B, C, and G portions, and we didn't have to go replace that gusset. So this is just kind of a really good example of us, Kiewit and HDR working together to make this happen. So I've focused on portal number 1 just for the audience to kind of see one portal in the progression. So when you go to the next slide, that's what portal 1 looks like in real life. So the first thing we had to do is we had to get specialists out here in lead paint abatement. So you can see where the guys are working. That's the gusset area. We had to remove all of the lead paint there. And then any other place that we were going to cut out or remove, we have to get the lead paint removed. Step 1 in the process was to remove the rivets that are, attaching the members to these gussets. Rivets were used back in the 20s and 30s to assemble these bridges. And if you ever get a chance to watch a YouTube video of it, you're going to be impressed. They go in hot and they're red hot, and then they get smashed down. And when they cool, they actually contract enough and put the right amount of tension in that member and keep it together. So kind of fascinating to work on some of these older structures. So step 1 was to go in there with a rivet buster and remove these rivets and replace them one at a time with a temporary bolt, and then tighten up that temporary bolt. So you can go to the next slide. So this is last night as we were getting ready to start removing some of the members, and where you see that there's paint removed, that's where, like, either we have a rivet removal or and then there's some other spots where we've said, let's put a spot where if we need to flame torch cut this piece out because it's bound up, we can give ourselves relief on that. So trying to think ahead and trying to pick up all those spots, because we had to have those paint people go through ahead of us. There's a couple spots where we just went a little extra, and just in case we needed it. So I guess the spot to kind of look at here is the person with the red sleeves on the left, kind of above his left hand. You see that spot there has the paint abated, and then there's also paint abatement on that vertical member. If you go to the next slide. So you can see we went ahead and just cut that spot out. And later on, you'll see in another slide, we went back and we had to grind out the weld on that vertical member. This is an emergency repair, and we're very happy that HDR is out there and we're working together. One of the things that kind of came up last night was the method in which we were using to remove the weld. That we couldn't use that method anymore. It's called a carbon air arc that removes that weld out of there. And instead, it's recommended that we use a grinder, which kind of takes a lot more time. And so with that in mind, we went to work. Now it's like, hey, we got something new, in the cards. So we went and tried to get out in front of ourselves and spent multiple hours last night going down to the other portals and getting those welds removed so that we don't have to do that kind of while we're on the critical path. Next slide. So this is kind of a really good photo of, what needs to be done to put this thing back together. That we have drawings from the 20s and 30s when the bridge was built. It shows some of the different dimensions, but we can't really rely on those because we're piecing it back into an existing bridge. So we've ordered these pieces long. We had some pieces that have been fabricated that were just the right exact length, and that we caught that, and we had like this piece on the bottom, that horizontal piece. We ended up having it fabricated 6 inches longer than it needed to be, and we only had to trim it 2 inches last night. So what you can see, that piece of plywood up there, that represents the new gusset plate. So we're getting everything fit into position, and we're making sure all the geometry is right. And then we have a temporary piece of plywood there that we're going to mark up And then we'll put that down onto the gusset plate down on the ground and we'll transfer those marks down there and then we can cut the gusset plate and put it and install it with bolts. The other thing you notice is on that vertical member now that that piece of steel has been ground away and it's been removed. So next slide. Just a different angle. Could you move that ribbon down below so we can see that the top of the. So all those pieces get brought up with a forklift and then we have a chain fall that secures it in place and it allows us. So we've like that horizontal member, we bolted it onto the left side and then we take the chain fall and we can move it ever so slightly back and forth just to make sure we get the geometry right. Once all that's correct, then we have the plywood up there and we can transfer the bolt hole locations to that piece of plywood. So
You'll move the forklift down to the other end and start lifting the second one up.
yeah,
Because this one's up on chain poles.
yes, yes, and that, you know, there's many constraints that I should just mention, like the amount of equipment we can have at different spots on the bridge. We have to be very mindful of that we don't overload something. And then the other thing is we all know that the bridge is not very wide. So there's, once you park a piece of equipment in there, you have to know that you're not blocking the next piece of equipment if it needs to go past it. And so, and on top of that, I mean, we've already had one instance where the city of White Salmon or Bingen needed to get a fire truck across and we had to clear out of the way and let them through.
The tribal police lesson.
Oh, was that it? Okay. Next slide. These are the fabricated parts and pieces that we have here. We have some more showing up today, and then by tomorrow, we'll have all of the parts and pieces that we think we need, and some extra ones fabricated and all on site. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When are we gonna open the bridge?
I know.
That one was coming.
I'll give you the Mike Fox date is open it by the end of the night shift on Wednesday, so Thursday morning. That's what we're trying for. Realistically, I think it's Thursday night shift or Friday night shift by the time.
Yeah, and remember our commitment to the community was Sunday night.
Yeah.
So anything we can do to advance that, that's to the benefit of the,
Well, especially weekend. I know that
especially.
so many tourism businesses would
And
adore.
I'll tell you, from my point of view, and some of you know, I'm all over this thing. I really want to compliment both companies and the port, Brian and his team. You guys are working really well together. And when you hit a snag, you stop, you talk about it, figure a workaround. That's the way the thing's supposed to work, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I think everybody should know all of us have people working on this literally day and night. I get an email at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and it's a laundry list of here's what you need to do today. And we got people driving to Portland. One guy's coming on his way back right now, getting different equipment if we need different equipment, getting submittals reviewed and commented on. And I mean, we were sending in submittals at 8, 9 o'clock last night. So it's yeah, kudos to everybody.
Kudos.
And Ryan's, what time do you come up? 3?
2:30.
2:30. So everybody is. So it's been really interesting to see for somebody that doesn't have engineering or construction experience. It's really been great to sit in on those meetings and kind of hear the deliberation and the pushback and the really a lot of creativity at times as well. So I don't know if there's any other questions as far as the construction or engineering components, but certainly wanted to give you that opportunity.
No, it was super interesting and I really appreciate the thoroughness. I know that in our public comments, there was a couple of either past engineers or engineers that had some very detailed questions, and what you guys put out was, I think it was very impressive. So thank you.
So you guys are more than welcome to stick around or leave whichever you have. I know you got a shift coming on at 7. As they hit on the door. Yeah. Ryan might be too far behind him. Scott, why don't you come on up, sit up here at the table and we can talk a little bit on the cost and insurance. And so one of the big elements that Debbie helped me with is really kind of putting together the preliminary expenses for this project. And so we do have a contract with Kiewit. The actual estimate was 515, even though the contract amount was not to exceed 1 million. That's why I put it in the consent calendars, because you gave me authority up to 1 million. And so really the contracts that were approved were over that amount. But the preliminary estimate's 515. The engineering estimate was 382. And then we've got Wisjani, which will be coming back. They are the electrical and mechanical engineers. They'll be coming in on the last day to do a lift check. We also had significant traffic control expense. In addition to Hood River Security, who is our current night security, they ended up putting a bunch of during that full-time closure. They pretty much covered half the days, and then our guys worked overtime. But we've had pretty much 24/7 out there since the 27th.
And it's really good that you guys have had that, because I understand that we have had some sneakers.
We have, and I will touch base on that in the recommendations, because we did have people go through and Ryan's guys have gotten license plates, so we know who these offenders are. And then Debbie was very helpful and her staff in putting together the toll loss, the 135,000. There was a pretty detailed breakdown in the packet on how what that looks like. And then staffing with the executive team and management team is about 15. These are very preliminary numbers, but the reason why it's important to get these numbers out is so that Scott Rainier can do what he needs to work on the insurance side. And I do want to just caution that, there's been a lot of questions about how this is going to get paid for. And, and I think really it's important that we be transparent, but we also be careful, and that these types of issues can take weeks, months, or years to resolve. And so we think it's important that Scott be here, but that, we have to be careful too, because we're learning new things every day. And so with that, Scott, I'll kind of let you kind of give an update on the insurance side.
So several sides to the insurance. The port's insurance carrier Chubb had an adjuster on site last week. Gentleman by the name of Steve Tukukuk. Steve was here in the afternoon. We met in the office. He stayed around until 7 p.m. then toured the bridge. And I have to sort of echo his comments, which are similar to Commissioner Fox's. He was just incredibly impressed with how organized the port was, the engineering firms, how far the process had already gotten by the time he arrived. And he actually not only said it to me over the phone, but in an email, which was included with a lot of the folks at Chubb in the claims department. So things have been, from that standpoint, you guys have done a really good job. He took the information that he gathered while he was here, plus a lot of other information that we've provided since his departure. And that is off to Chubb, and they're kind of doing their evaluation and they're working on it. That will work in parallel now with a little bit of additional information. The event occurred on 6/27. It took until yesterday for the owner of the vehicle's insurance carrier to acknowledge that they believe that there is coverage in place on that vehicle. That is the longest period of time I've ever seen an insurance carrier take to make such a decision or an announcement. But it's a very positive thing. And so we have now, as of today, connected their claims team with the claims department at Chubb. Everybody's gonna begin to work together. Just a few minutes before the meeting, I received an email from the vehicle owner's attorney, just asking for any further communication to go directly through the attorney. I look forward to that because the owner of the vehicle and I shared many text messages and phone calls over the last weekend. So that'll probably put an end to that, which is great. But I think things are moving in a much more positive direction than they were 36, 48 hours ago. There will likely be some road bumps along the way, and we can work through those. But that is yesterday's notification, which came, I think, at about 11 o'clock in the morning, was really good to see.
So when I look at the numbers, we may be able to live with these if we can get the job done sooner. That's one reason why we're trying to push for a Friday date. But one area of risk here is the left check. We know one of the verticals is a little out of whack. Hopefully it's not enough to cause a problem, but we're not gonna know that until we lift it.
I'm aware.
So, yeah, please.
I'm sure you're comfortable talking to an attorney, whatever, since they've requested that, is the Ports Legal Counsel now aware of this, and should we be communicating through?
So I have a recommendation. I think moving forward, all communication should include the port's attorney, the vehicle owner's attorney, and the adjusters from both sides. That's clearly the point that we are at this time, and just to avoid any confusion or anything that could potentially begin to occur moving forward, I think it is,
So that's my question, is our legal counsel on this already?
I mean, we literally, I have not.
Maybe just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, this is hot off the, I texted Ashley, I haven't heard back from her, but yeah, that I'll definitely be following.
Right,
up.
that just came across.
Exactly. This is real time for sure. So any other questions for Scott on or any of these costs? I mean, we tried to put as much of the detail that was public information in the exhibits. So there's a lot out there. So I think we've been very transparent about everything that's transpired here. So, but there is a lot of interest in the open date. And so, so that's great to hear that.
Well, we're not there yet.
I know.
We
got some
goals.
goals.
Target last night, so let's check tonight.
We don't have a countdown clock yet.
Yeah, but nobody's looking at it other than me.
So why don't we go ahead, I'm not gonna read the report to you, but let's just go to the next slide and let's just go to the recommendations. And so one of the things about an after action report is really what can we be doing as a agency to improve our processes? And a lot of these are just management practices that really don't take any action of the board. So I did spend some time with Charles Young, who's the county emergency management or emergency manager, and they use the NIMS process. There's a reference in the report about this being a type 3 incident, and there were some exhibit materials. When I have been at prior stops, I have taken the IS 100, the IS 200, and it was a much smaller organization. These are really good training that just prepares staff for coordination. So that's something that we can do as soon as they're available.
Can you explain how involved those courses are or what they involve?
Yeah, they're, and I'm gonna go back from memory from when I took them
That's
last,
fine.
but they're, they're like half-day courses online. Who's gonna be the point person for communications? Do you have an EAP? A lot of just best practices.
Okay, thanks.
So the second recommendation, so the port does have an emergency action plan. It was last amended in 2018. The EAP tends to focus on big generic kind of disasters like fires and earthquakes and things of that nature, but it doesn't specifically address the bridge. And so Charles and I talked about, maybe having him come in or having somebody from the University of Oregon, because the county's currently going through a hazard mitigation plan update. And working with them to create a bridge-specific chapter to that EAP. And so that's something that we can just do with the University of Oregon's assistance in the counties.
What I'm hearing is that's gonna be like a graduate student project.
Exactly, exactly. These are not terribly technical. You don't want them to be technical. You don't want them to be 20 pages. You want them to be used.
Yeah.
And so it's really just kind of how do you organize information. So 3, and again, create a checklist of updated agencies. I think everybody between Patty and Ryan and myself, we have the people that we talk to on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and we were just hitting them. But did we have a checklist where we were actually going down? Okay, got that guy, weren't using a checklist, so we're just gonna update our checklist, make sure that we've got that. So that we make sure we don't forget anybody. So very easy correction. In addition to that, is email lists. So Genevieve had a very extensive constant contact email lists. I think we've got about 35,000 email addresses on our main constant contact list. So we have to be very careful about how to send information out to that so people don't get off of that list. So what we can do though is put together sub lists. We can have all of our elected federal elected field reps could be included as a subset. Our state elected officials, our local officials, so on and so forth. So we're going to develop some email lists. We have all those things. It's just a matter of putting them into a constant contact. So it's just a quick button.
That's great.
I think there was a little bit of a delay, I think, on some of the reports that came out on June 30th. And so we'll just be conscientious to get those things out there on the website, easy to access as soon as we can. We did have a slight delay there. We have been having issues with our website. And so one of Patty's goals in the coming months is to just do a full revamp of our website. And frankly, that should solve some of these issues. One of the big issues was the 12-hour 7 to 7 choice. And so lots of input from chambers of commerce, individual businesses about that 12-hour choice. And so one thing that I think we should discuss is how we go around about deciding on those hours. 12 hours has been consistently the easiest, most time-effective period of time to get the most amount of work done. But we do have some flexibility, whether it's 7 to 7, 8 to 8, or 6 to 6. And so a lot of these issues are seasonal. And we're just about ready to be in the pear season. So that puts pressure on Mount Adams fruit. During the winter, the restaurants aren't going to be quite as concerned about evening hours. And so one of the things I wanted to hear from the board is just reaching out, putting some feelers out about months of the year and different closures based upon what month. And then that can just be an exhibit to the EAP. And if something does happen, we've already kind of had it vetted by those stakeholders most affected. And then we can just plug that time in.
Something maybe to consider, the new bridge is has got a current conditions report, and the draft now is out, and I've been reading through it. There's one section on traffic, and they have lifted a bunch of information out of the toll study that was done by Washington State.
Sure, yep.
And there's a tremendous amount of detail and data in there on traffic across the bridge by day, by hour. And you can see when it ramps up and when it ramps down through the day. And actually what we did, the 7 to 7 fits fairly nicely in there. It would be a little nicer if we went 7 instead of 7 p.m. if we could take it all the way to 8 or 9 but they'll still open it up by 7 in the morning. You would catch a few more people, you know, especially coming from, going back and forth to Washington in the early evening. But when you look at the mass of the data, the 7 to 7 is not bad.
No, and I think an emergency repair.
Yeah.
Warrants doing a 12-hour closure, if it's just. You know, welds
Welding.
that we're
Yeah,
scheduling
welding,
in, and we
you'd
don't
wanna
need to
go
do that, but.
10 PM to
Yeah,
6 or
6.
something like that.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit with you on, and I think I mentioned this to Kevin before, was, I like the approach of maybe looking at this, but instead of maybe asking businesses, because businesses do ebb and flow and change and seasonally and all of that, we can look at more statistical factors such as sunrise and sunset, you know, trip count over the bridge, and maybe kind of go with a more,
Yeah, you're not gonna satisfy everybody,
No,
but
never.
if you can get 90%, 80%, you're doing really good.
yeah,
You could change this closure from 9 to 9, but then you would affect other
healthcare
industries.
industries, yeah.
Any other, there would be,
Yeah.
other industries, that's not to say that those that currently affected aren't, they certainly are. But moving it only affects perhaps a different segment, but
Yeah,
But the traffic seems to take off across the bridge at around 6 o'clock in the morning. And it's going pretty well at 7. So we're impacting a little bit in the front end. We're impacting more on the back end, but that's because we're trying to get 12 hours in there.
yeah,
And you can see by the pictures, there's a lot of fit up work that has to be done. You gotta get it up in the air and you gotta move things around. And the way it's designed, you can't leave an entire member off. So you gotta work one member and then go to the next one and the next one. Now, you can leave a piece of it off. But now there's a wind loading requirement that we have to monitor. So it's all a real balancing act on this bridge, that there's a lot of moving parts. It's not just, well, it's up, or, yeah, there's only 1 or 2 members. No, there's some calculations involved behind the scenes.
but good further
Yeah,
discussion, for sure.
Absolutely, good feedback. Let's see, continuing on, so this has come up, this was really a coincidence because we had just raised the deductible. So one of the discussion items is whether the bridge insurance deductible should be reduced back to 500,000 when the annual policy is renewed in January of next year. We saved about $65,000 by going up to the $1 million deductible. There were some other issues related to the total project amount. I think it had been 187 million, and then I think that came down to 100 million as
Yeah.
well. And then clearly, you know, whatever the status is of the current vehicle operator and owner, you know, if in the future there wasn't insurance, then that's 100% likely going to be on the port. So you just have to kind of discuss the probabilities, and so, but it is worth a discussion because it has been timely, so. And
Kevin, can I?
Yeah, please.
I've given this a lot of thought, and I think the decision made back in January remains the correct decision. And for kind of a handful of reasons. What we experienced, coincidental, based on against the decision made just a few months before. But my suspicion is, and this isn't from an engineering standpoint, it's more from a risk and loss standpoint. It would take a vehicle of that size to do the kind of damage that was done. I don't see my pickup truck doing this amount of damage. Most vehicles of that size, both in Washington and Oregon, they have mandatory liability limits of $1 million. And so if the vehicle is of a tractor trailer size and it's operating in one of the 2 states, and I haven't looked to see if Idaho and some of the surrounding states are the same, but my guess is that they probably are. the mandatory underlying insurance coverage matches up kind of perfectly with the decision that was made in January. And so to me, as you kind of look forward, you know, with the I believe the understanding that a smaller vehicle couldn't do as much damage. I feel like the decision that was made is still the correct choice. And that's, I guess, my evaluation of it at this time, but so.
Cool, so it sounds like there's consensus that we keep moving forward with that current policy, Tor.
That's my feeling.
And then, so one of the other things too that we have seen, this is from everything I've been told. In fact, I think I was talking to Ben's dad, Craig, about if he had ever seen traffic control out there separating out semis from vehicle traffic, and he said it was the first time he had ever seen that. So, but even though had people out there 24/7, we still had violators. We still had people that ran through. And there's been, for whatever reason, a reluctance by Hood River Police and the state police to cite or fine people based upon the ports ordinances and the ports fines. So I'm assuming that everybody's in favor of citing these businesses, even if they live in the Tri-Cities.
Absolutely.
And so Ashley is actually looking at our ordinances to make sure that we can issue those citations. If we can, we're going to issue, I think the starting is $440. So those will be issued as soon as she does her research. And if for some reason there's a limiting factor that she doesn't feel comfortable, then we'll come back to you with ordinance amendments to clarify whatever needs to be clarified so that we can do that.
I'll tell you, I think the other thing that we ought to be thinking about doing, we know who ran the barrier. We got their license plate and we got a company logo or something. I think we ought to work with a newspaper partners and embarrass them. Because they went through a barrier and they ignored our guys. And we're trying to keep the bridge safe. We're trying to keep them safe. And they ignored both of them. That's totally unacceptable.
Can we just?
And I think we ought to be just,
No, finish.
yeah.
Could we just ban them from touching our property?
Trespass is one of the options.
Yeah.
I mean,
Trespass that was one of the,
Frequent abusers maybe
No.
would say,
Yeah.
sorry, you can't come across our
nobody
bridge.
can say, I didn't know.
Yep.
They did it on purpose. Why can't we just trespass?
There's signs from Portland to
It's.
Pendleton and
Yeah.
Washington State as well.
so she's looking at 3 different tracks, if you will, on how to approach this. And so I don't think that we've done a lot of this type of, the port hasn't really been in the practice.
But the longer we go without making a big deal about this in the paper, and I'm looking at you for help,
Paper.
it's a problem. And we're working, guys, we're working our tails off trying to protect that bridge and make it last until the new one's open.
Well, the
That
other,
doesn't help us.
and the other thing too is, I did read through all of the comments, feedback, all of that, and a lot of it was from citizens saying, why do we allow truck traffic? And I know as a board, we really look at what the bridge does for the community, and that truck traffic is very, very important for the economy here. So I know that that's not really something that we want to entertain, but if these companies are going to, completely disregard what we're trying to do, it's
But I will-
frustrating.
I will predict for you, is the natural progression of our bridge. It will get to the point where the next step is taking the trucks off the bridge. And then we'll be able to keep it alive for a period of time with cars only. And then we're gonna have to shut it down. And if we don't have a new bridge built by that time, people are gonna be going around 40 miles. And it's coming.
Mhm.
So I would plead with a newspaper buddy, you gotta help us.
Can I just make just one cautionary note? Because I do, I do wanna, I feel for Isaac Riley. Because there's been a lot of misinformation
Oh, yeah.
from the very beginning regarding this, and I think there was a rush. Initially, there had been a thought that it was Rapid Ready Mix, for example, but it wasn't. It was one of his other businesses, and does he have insurance or not? So, sometimes when we're quick to put out information, we don't necessarily know the other side of the story.
We don't need to call out individuals, we can. I do think the community should know that it is being disregarded, which is why, because I've had people ask me, why do we have to have 24-hour patrol? And I said, unfortunately, it's because people are not obeying our request.
That's right.
And so that simple statement might be known. I also would like to somehow thank Rapid Ready Mix. I know that they came after the incident and they volunteered to help patrol and flag. And I understand as a public agency, we were unable to quickly facilitate that, just the way the public bodies work, but I'm super appreciative of the gesture. And, yeah, so I agree, he's gone through the ringer and it's not necessarily fair.
I don't think this article needs to be about him. It needs to be about the violators going around us and going out on the bridge as a truck.
A
When it's in
the salient detail here is that the Port of Hood River is the state of Oregon government. I mean, we are the state of Oregon. So it's surprising to me that the Oregon State Police are kind of sitting on their hands, honestly.
Yeah, and I think, it's like, what court do we cite him into? I mean, there's a lot of interesting little legal things as well. But I think in the next month, by the August 20th meeting, I should be able to get you some.
But I agree that we should be aggressive and taking action.
How many run-throughs do you think there's been over the last 2 weeks?
Looking at the charts, probably around, well, I don't know how many they've turned around, but there's been over 20 attempts. And they all say that they didn't know.
And what is,
I'm more worried about the ones that went through. So you think it was 20 that got across?
Not across.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the twosies, threesies.
Yes.
But even that is still bad.
I think we'd like to know our options as soon as we can and expect us to want to do something about it would be my takeaway.
If she can move forward, she's just gonna do it.
Well,
So,
I think we should decide, is $400 ticket
and
what we want to
so
do?
I think there's a statute kind of they kind of designate what the dollar amounts are.
Mhm.
But we'll do whatever we can as quickly as possible.
Were you gonna say something?
there isn't, when you guys are stopping, is there an opportunity for you guys to be injured by a vehicle that would
Yes.
continue on?
Yes.
And I think that is as much an issue here as anything, which is you have flaggers and people out there trying to do the right thing, and if they are put at risk physically, it's
And I think is
But
what brought
Scott, I
this whole
think-
thing.
We've told those guys when we set it up,
Oh.
if somebody tries to run it, stay out of the way.
Yeah, I 100%.
Try to take a picture.
Yes. So I think is what brought this up is we actually had a passenger vehicle. All our barricades are out, we were blocking both ends, been closed for 5 minutes, just finishing up. Put vehicles in a way so you couldn't physically go through. Ignored our flaggers telling them to turn around, it's closed. Pretty much gave us the finger, went around and crossed anyway. So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to stop, as well as
Yeah.
just a pure disregard of, no, you can't do it for safety.
Again, we need your help.
So, and just, lots of thanks to go around. Ryan and his team, Ryan's just been a real stud on this whole thing. I mean, between him and Commissioner Fox, they basically have been the project managers or the owner's rep for the project. There wasn't enough time to go and hire a PM for this, but between you going up, looking and making sure the right nuggets are up there and bolts, and you kind of knowing the questions to ask. I think it's really been all hands on deck and it's been very effective.
Yeah.
I think we're getting the bridge put back together a lot sooner than it could have been. Absolutely.
Okay, is
So anyway, that's all I've
that
got.
all for the,
Yep, and I don't have anything on the ED. It's all been, I feel bad, like I was so used to going out to the airport and spending all this time with Tora. It's like, I feel like I've
just abandon
I've
everyone.
abandoned you.
So low.
Well, I do wanna, again, this report, this incident report, again, you know, with the engineers, with the insurance. I just, with Commissioner Fox, I know the countless hours that you've been spending on this
Thank you.
and Tor, obviously, No, I just wanna really thank everyone for, I know that this has been 3 weeks now of constant, um. Constant attention and everyone's really rolled up their sleeves and it's very appreciated.
So I wasn't gonna say anything more on the ED report, but I know that the centennial celebration, I know that's one item and you guys have been, so I don't know if you wanna talk about that now or wait till the commission roundtable.
Oh, we can wait for that. So you're good with your executive director?
Yeah, unless you have any questions specifically, if you saw anything in there worth noting.
Is there any real update on lot 1 and how that thing is progressing?
Yeah, that's gonna be something which we'll get to in my committee. I'll talk about that at commission.
Yeah.
Cause there's gonna be a choice, I think you guys gotta make as far as dates, but
Okay,
let me get wait to that.
okay. And so with that, we will move, I guess, commissioner and committee reports. So, Ben, why don't you go ahead and give us an update on lot 1?
There's a couple of meetings over there. There's gonna be a few meetings over the next few weeks that might require some discussion with you and just a change to an existing document. That probably would happen at the August 20th meeting, which I will not be at. I'll be taking a child to college. So depending on the significance of that, I'll either request that we might change a meeting date, because I won't be able to even zoom in. Or if it doesn't require it, I'll include an email with the document to all of you in advance of that meeting. But I'll know that here next week, I think, after we have our meeting, so.
And you had a,
It's not a major, it would just be a scope change, since we're moving from some anchorway work to roundabout work. It's just a scope change with some KVFF, I think. So it's not a major project thing, but it is moving forward and we've had a lot of positive feedback lately, so it gets us to where we need to be with moving with ODOT, so.
and ODOT is, cause I know that they were not killing the project, but they needed more information and so they're back on track, all good.
We've had some great meetings with them. I know Scott and Kevin haven't, I think we'll have a full report on that, but yes, there's no
Great,
problems right there.
thank you for all your work on that.
And thanks for hosting the meeting with Senator
Oh,
Bond.
sorry, we had Senator Bond at the store and then talking about the project. And I assume we got him all the information he requested.
Yeah, I'm gonna run by and get your signature on the thank you card. Send him a.
And he was very supportive and helpful. And he's actually meeting with the director of ODOT the following day. I said he would mention it. Very, very kind of good meeting.
There was, from memory, there was some grant that we had that we were going, that was aimed at the other area and we wanted to shift it down to the
And
roundabout.
Senator Bonham was key in making sure that that happened. It was $500,000 of that. And he was instrumental in making sure that that happened, and it has happened.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, at this point, all three of those grants we've gotten certainty from all of them that we can change the scope.
Excellent.
Before we submit documents, we just need KPFF. Produce some preliminary drawings and stuff to accompany the scope.
And I think the August 20 meeting, it would be easy to move, so you could be there.
Yeah, I'll see how this meeting goes and see what exactly it is. If it's just a scope change saying, hey, we're gonna work on roundabout instead of East Anchorway, but everything else is what you've already said. I probably won't need to be here, and Kevin can easily explain that. If it's something more significant, we'll chat about it.
Perfect. Commissioner Beaker, do you have anything about the airport?
Just that I think we're gonna move, our airport meeting is actually later this week, which is terrible because then. Can't bring all the developments, cause there's a lot going on, but So we're gonna restructure when we meet so that it aligns better for bringing information to you guys. But there are some exciting things in the works, so. Just.
That's called a teaser.
It's a teaser, it's a teaser, I don't have anything really solid yet,
Tune in for
but.
the next meeting.
But yeah, there's some interesting developments, I think, and a few decisions that we'll have to make, and yeah, next time.
Jeff Bernard is on duty.
He and I have been communicating regularly, and yeah, it's good,
Good.
it's good.
Commissioner Fox, you've
You already know what I can tell.
just been hanging out, not doing
Yeah.
much.
Drinking beer.
Yeah. Commissioner Garing, I believe you have an update on, that might be an action item. Moving forward with potential license plate. Yes.
Did you want to finish anything on this? Because we have that as a action
Oh,
item.
Centennial, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
We are moving forward with a Centennial celebration October 6th, 2025. We've been working with
24,
24.
just a couple months away.
Yes, 24, sorry. And we've been working to kind of figure out the logistics, figure out everything with that, and moving forward with that, we've been working with Visit Hood River, as well as the company that they use for Harvest Fest, sorry. And so we're gonna be able to utilize some of, because it's the day after Harvest Fest.
Hops Fest,
Harvest Fest? No, Harvest Fest.
stay after Hops Fest.
Hops Fest. And so we'll be able to move it over and utilize some of the stuff for some cost savings and some. And but I think everyone is moving forward. We have good input from Wham, they're on board, and talking about all of the fun things that we can do. And I think I'm gonna present to the Bridge Authority meeting to make sure that they have a booth at it.
And I've given a heads up today to communications.
Perfect.
So.
And did you have anything else that we wanted to?
You know, I think the last thing that I remember was that we're still gonna have a control point, because one of the things that we want to make sure is that everybody signs a waiver, and so there's pre-registration, and so it will look like a 5K run. There won't be a run, but you'll have that type of
Pre-registration.
pre-registration that you get something that we know you've signed the waiver. So we'll be kind of controlling that, but other than that, I mean, that was the big concern for me, just from, making sure we've got everybody understands what they're doing.
I think no dogs is a no brainer with that steel grade. Are you gonna do bikes or
No
not?
bikes.
No
Okay, no bikes. I think just getting that out there,
Just
just
people walking.
just pedestrian.
Just people.
Just pedestrian.
We're gonna have some Model A's, and there's some historic picture from the ribbon cutting, and I think Arthur's gonna try to recreate that photo from 1924, so.
Mr. Butler.
Yes, Mr. Butler, yep, exactly, so
Yeah.
I really appreciate everything you guys are doing, so.
I like the idea of having the cars of the decades, so we can see the size of a Model T versus the Sprinter van with the pods and the bikes and.
It'd also be cool if and I'm sure Wham's got it, an old truck,
Oh, fire
Oh,
truck.
yeah.
and then we get a
They
new
do.
truck
Oh, yeah.
extra.
Mhm. Yeah, and we have talked to Wham about a flyover, and I'm working with the coast or the reserves for
That'd be
maybe
really
a
cool.
really nice flyover. So we'll see.
Lane Fringer is interested in photography for the day.
Oh, cool, okay.
So I think we've got a lot of
You
stuff
know-
moving forward.
Just something to think about. Maybe talk to the Coast Guard and see if they can bring up and
Yes.
shoot water over as people are walking underneath.
That would be very cool. I will,
We just don't want to lift the
no,
span.
just bring the short one.
I think there's still a pilot or two in town that have flown successfully under the lift span.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, so that's a different waiver.
Say that out loud.
Speaking of waivers and pictures, do we, with the waiver signage, do we still need to have barricades on both sides?
I don't think so, I think I was just seeing that there was
I do, and the reason for it is to keep the cars off the bridge. especially on the Washington side.
Well, we can barricade those, but we were talking about putting down both sides up against the
Oh.
guardrail to keep people from the guardrail. So if there's gonna be pictures and all this other stuff, I think that'd be kind of a nuisance.
The railing's actually higher than I thought it was.
Yeah, the only section would be the lift span.
That's true. I know that
Slightly.
they do a walk on, now it's a much wider bridge in Portland. I think it's either the.
Well, those
Burnside.
guys are gonna be so freaked when they're walking on that
Y-
grading.
yes.
Oh
and
my
looking down
gosh.
through it.
Yes.
They'll take 2 steps and turn around and go back.
You
But I
know,
was thinking of this waiver would protect us from, any like, because the guardrail's not perfect. So, they know what they're getting into.
Yeah, we'll keep figuring out details. Lots of meetings are happening between now and then, so we'll keep you posted. But exciting stuff. I even might have a really fun music guest. We'll see.
John, man.
I do, I do want to talk to him about some music stuff, so we'll see, but, okay, and then, so now back to sharing on some fun information.
Well, you have it all in your packet. Christy and Gretchen Goss and I were talking about doing a special plate for the Columbia River Gorge that would have like a Hood River theme with Mount Hood and the river, and possibly some wind sports color in the
80s Day
picture.
Club.
In Dayglow. Christy wants Dayglow. And so it would take a $5,000 registration fee to the DMV. And if we are approved, then we can start working with finding an artist to make the artwork. And then you work with the DMV's procurement office to come up with a licensing structure. And then when that happens, they give you vouchers for pre-sales, and you have to sell 3,000 vouchers at $40 each. And then that money is sent to the DMV, and then the process of getting the license plates to the DMV for the public use, it starts. So 3,000 people will be lucky to get the first 3,000
That will be
special plates. And then,
So just let me clarify this. So to do this program, the port fronts the money for the first 3,000.
No. no, you,
well, we have to sell the vouchers.
you sell the vouchers, and then the money from the vouchers goes to the DMV.
Okay, so we don't have to put up 120,000.
No.
You
Okay,
put up 5K, then
5,000.
you sell 3K.
it's
Yeah,
like
and there's
selling
no-
candy bars.
There's no time limit to sell
Okay.
the 3,000
Okay.
vouchers.
I think a really good example of this is Kevin just sent an email today or yesterday that, the
Graywell.
the Gray Whale one, they're at 32,000 sales.
And then where do we start making some money on the license plates?
That's all in the licensing
Okay,
structure that you,
But we don't, in the future, we don't make anything off of this. This is
Renewal.
community.
no, well. I don't know if we set up a separate 501(c) or how it works, but the money does go.
Oh, is that right?
yeah, it will make money.
this was, so when I talked to, the Marine Mammal, Institute at Hatfield, that did the gray well, I mean, they're making money off the renewals.
Mhm.
So you don't, the first year, you really don't, you break.
It's more
even.
break even, yeah.
But then on the renewals, and then they want you to sell additional, I think a minimum of 2,000 every other year. But then on the renewals, so even if you don't, let's say after 3 years, you can't sell another 2,000, you still have, let's say 10,000 in circulation. Every year that you renew, that $40 or whatever goes into the, and I'm assuming that the intent is that this would go into the 501(c)(3) to fund the parks, or, I mean, that's the next conversation is how does that money get used?
When you know all the information, can we get kind of a proposal
Mhm.
on that? Because I can see. If $5,000, okay, that's easy. Sell 3,000, that's hard. But it also says in there you have to sell 2,000 each year after that. That's easy, I think, because after you sell your first 3,000, then every DMV in the state is gonna be displaying your license plate as an option for people. I walked in over here the other few months back and saw the new B one. Like, that's cool, I'm number 66. I like 3,066, because somebody sold 3,000, I'm 66. Like, that's neat, so everybody will see it when they go in and say, what plate do you want? So I can see that as being a little easier.
Yeah,
But
and
the
people
first
are
3,000
online,
seems
so it'll be online also.
like, yeah, the first 3,000 seems like the harder one, which we can figure out, but I'd love to see here's how much you get per new one per year.
And the
then
numbering isn't a good idea.
How much in a renewal, kind of an idea, I think they'd be really interested to see.
Is there anybody else on the board that's doing this?
Not that I know of, not unless it's application and I haven't seen.
But we just mentioned this in a public meeting, so
Yeah.
clock's ticking.
Well, there are, you have to be, like, you have to qualify. Public body qualifies.
Is the next meeting too soon to have that together? It's on the way.
Well, I would, I mean, I guess the information,
Do you have to do the proposal and give them the $5,000 before you can get that?
I think we could talk to them and probably try and get as much as possible.
Slow down, review. I think it's a great idea.
To me, I think it's
You have to.
worth having
submit
another
plate
discussion. And doing a little study on it. And some of the things like, okay, how would we sell the 3,000? What would be our vehicle to do that?
Our website.
Well, can we do it as part of our help desk here?
Yeah.
And then what else could we do to stimulate that? So wherever we've got a booth, we post it there as well. And I don't know, I
sentence.
was just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, celebration.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, especially if they're numbered and it's a coveted thing.
So a couple of points. One, it says here in the initial application process, you have to have your plate design done to even apply. So you fill out all the documentation,
No,
you get their pre $5,000 and your requested plate design. And then they look at that. So that's one key point. And then the second thing I would say is you could, to raise awareness, you could do, we have a lot of artists in the gorge, like a lot of artists.
Contest.
We could do a contest for the plate design.
That's great.
Yeah, to raise awareness.
But I think if you're trying to make this really, really unique,
Yeah.
you use the bridge, because the bridge is going away. And this is something that they can hang on to. Or do you do it with the windsurfers and that kind of stuff?
Well, I guess my thought on this is that what is the money gonna be used for?
Oh, we'll spend it.
That I think that there's a closer nexus to the waterfront.
Okay.
And the
Or you submit your application for creation of a new special registration plate.
Is an artist.
Then number two, the DMV reviews the application and approves or denies and notifies a group. If it's approved, then you send the plate design to plate.
Which page is this? Where is this?
Page 9.
Page 9. Okay.
Page 3 is what I'm looking at. It says you have.
Yeah,
plate
page
design on your
3,
individual
it's like,
application.
you better have it. So let's take a look.
Which is fine. If that's true, you just do your contest first.
Yeah.
Okay, I could be wrong. I
See that.
That would make sense, because then they're approving something. that
They know
they have
it's
no
approved.
idea.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I guess the question for the commission then is, would we like to move forward to continue with this process? And then basically what we would need to do is between now and our next meeting, come up with what this competition or artist rendering is gonna.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to do it. Get the community involved.
Just I'm gonna step up and kind of protect staff here. Because this is a pretty large undertaking, and I know Gretchen, who is kind of acting as a contract employee, if you will, to help with, I mean. The hope is that she'll be kind of taking the lead on it from a staffing level, because I think at this point, this is a fairly large undertaking. And when I was talking with the woman down at the Marine Mammal Institute, she's like, it's a big deal. So having somebody that can be tasked with making sure that somebody that can manage the project is going to be really important. And frankly, at this point right now, with everything going on, we're pretty tapped out. Not to say that's not a great project, but just the less that has to get dumped onto the current staff, I'll be a little bit protective of that.
Well, I can
Come
talk
back
to
to
Gretchen
some
and see
small
if she has that in her
contractors.
bandwidth right now.
And I've talked to her
Yeah.
about it, and it sounds like, you know, between that and the Centennial, yeah.
Next week, so I'll talk to her before then. Well, I'll kind of get a gauge of her capacity and we can talk.
So what are you looking for consensus to get this moving forward?
Would
and
we
stuff?
like to
What do you
keep
decide?
moving?
Is that what you want?
Are you guys okay with us continuing to move forward? And
Yeah.
so at the next meeting, we'll come up with whatever the plan is gonna be for how we procure the art.
If time becomes of the essence for some reason, just let's all get together on Zoom or something. real quick.
Sounds good.
I'd kind of like to know when we come back. What kind of revenue stream could this impact generate?
Yeah, I don't know, Kevin might have a better idea. I had some pretty old.
Numbers.
Numbers,
So not tonight, but when we
Yeah.
get back together.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep gathering more information and bring it to the next staff if everyone, so I don't know if that necessarily needs to be an action item or just a
So
consensus.
no
to
money's being
continue.
approved at this point.
I don't think so, because I don't think we can submit the application until we have the art.
So then I guess it's just consensus to, I guess in a way, there's kind of a small internal committee of Christy and Heather that are the primary leads.
Look at you volunteering us that.
I'm just clarifying.
It's like, well, if this requires, I mean, we're getting used to this, if this requires some small contract or somebody.
Then we
they
can
get
just
that
do
one-
it. special.
He's already under contract too.
On that amendment, do it, probably do it, because we understand what you're saying, and of course, this is gonna take some effort and manpower on the front end, but I imagine the ongoing maintenance is not that difficult.
I don't think it is.
Issue.
I think setting up and maybe a meeting with like somebody at Hatfield, or they just did the puffin plate for the
Yeah.
Oregon Aquarium.
Total revenue.
Just get a, sit down with them just to
And that's.
see what the real issues are.
And maybe bring back some ideas, because it's a
Top
nonprofit,
one,
here's what we're thinking, and what we use that for.
Yeah.
Whatever, whatever, yeah,
Mhm.
and then we should be clear about that with the community.
Oh, incredibly clear. Okay,
Maybe.
does anybody have any commission call, anything else to add? If not, then our next meeting, unless we need to change it, it's August 20th. Any confirmation of commission directors from staff? I guess the one is we will continue to move forward with this. And come back next month with probably an action item. And keep working on the Centennial. Anything else?
That's all from staff.
Okay. Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.